That is messed up.
Facebook thought I was Ellis one time, so I mean,
Yeah.
I get that they're like they're like, who's in this photo of me? They're like Ellis Rodriguez.
I didn't notice it till just now.
Nice.
All right, this is the Gag on This podcast. I am Big Nick. I'm joined always by my Portuguese lover that is Rob.
Hello.
I'm joined by the Italian stallion that is Danny D.
Baby.
Honorary gagger, CharRon.
You know.
And then we got our guest, the hilarious Derek goddamn Dozier.
What up? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. By the way, I saw that your name was also spelled Dozier.
I honestly think it's easier to read that way. I did a lot of acting before I did any comedy stuff. And so there was a part of me that thought I should like change my name and try to do like get like comedy credits like with a slightly different name.
Well, yeah, I saw Doja and I was like, oh, how weed friendly is he?
Right? And usually people don't get the reference even at all. So it's a funny thing. Like I'm like, oh, it's like it'd be a weed thing, but yeah. So it's like it seems like 1 in 100 get the reference.
I'm sure Danny got the reference instantly.
You know, the one memory I think I have of you, you rolled the biggest joint I've ever smoked, and like it was awesome. It was a good time. So it was so fucking fat though. It was very girthy, boys. He knows how to roll a good joint.
Well, thank you. I like that's the one memory I think I have. Like 20 memories of you. You know, we've been around each other more than that, but I'll
That's
take
my
it.
favorite. That's
I'll
my
take
favorite
it.
memory.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, hey, Danny, what's another memory you have of him?
Fuck you. When I did his show, I did one of his shows, and that was a lot of fun.
You did the boast?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah.
So I just want you to show us your nails because Danny says she's always jealous of them.
Well,
Ooh.
not right now. They look a little tore up right now.
We've been inside a lot, but because we are on Zoom and because I'm a master of camera angles, look at that.
It's like an abalone shell.
Nails,
Right?
you know,
A pearl?
but it's a slight camera trick. Yeah, a little mermaidy. I like doing my nails a lot. When I was a Christian, you know, like I was a really serious Christian as like a teenager and as like a 20-year-old, and then I lost my religion at like 26. I found reason, but for so long, I really I wished that I could with wearing a cross, like people would see me and just get who I was and get who I was trying to be. And I was never able to give that off, you know, with as a Christian, but as as a queer person, like painting my nails perfectly worked. Like painting my nails got people to see much more quickly the persona, what I hoped to use to interact with them with, you know.
Well, I do have to ask this since you brought it up. On when you did Invisible Disabilities, you put on there, you know, what was it? It was gay ex-Mormon was your disability.
Yeah, I don't know, like if what you know of like conservative religious people or like conservative Christians. Mormons are very sex obsessed, but they're also like but it's also Satan, you know. They're terrified of it, but they worship it. It's so fun and exciting. Like a lot of like I think a lot of religious people really kind of they're very sex excited and titillized, you know. And so it becomes the dance, you know. Like if you're telling people, especially like Mormons, don't do drugs, no coffee even, then sex becomes like the only fun thing. You know what I mean? Sex becomes like the only high physically that they're kind of allowed to have, but it's also so dirty and so raunchy and so weird. And so I have a lot of Mormon family members and cousins and stuff, but I had a lot of Mormon friends in high school. I started going to Mormon church with some high school friends, or actually middle school, high school friends, and I had learned all the like weird, like don't kiss more seriously than you'd kiss your father rules. And that's what all the girls were, that was their logic that they were applying to dating. So like a peck, fine. but that was the logic that
So if you saw girls making out with their dad, you knew some fucking fucked up shit was going on at their house.
Or they're just
Like,
or that they're trying to raise the bar for what they can do with their boyfriend, like they're
yeah, my ex-husband's super Mormon, and I ruined him apparently because I took his virginity and I, had a baby out of wedlock and, got a divorce. So, I ruined his whole Mormon statute life, but his whole family's Mormon. So it's interesting to see how they live.
Did you seduce him like into the marriage?
Yes.
Like,
No, not into the marriage, just into the bed.
So he was like, okay, I want you, and now we got to stick together. Like, so he knew it was naughty. Like, you were naughty from the beginning.
Well, so I was going through a conquering phase. My oldest is sitting right actually over here, so this is gonna be a great story for her to hear.
Love it.
I was going through a conquering phase, and he was a virgin, and he was like, "No, I'm not gonna have sex till I'm married," and I was like, "Yes, you are." And one thing led to another, and then we had a baby, a year later, and then I was like, then he was
in
like,
front of you.
yeah, who's sitting in front of me, and then he's like, well, we should get married, and I was like, no, we're not getting married just because you got me pregnant. We're gonna wait till this baby's born. And then we got married, and then we got divorced.
Yo, it was all worth it.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
my fuck trophies are awesome, as Rob would say.
Mhm.
But yeah, he's still
Fuck
Mormon.
trophies.
He's still Mormon. His girlfriend's Mormon, and he's a very hypocritical Mormon.
But
Aren't they all?
Mostly, how close did he get to winning you over? Like, I want to know I want to know when you went to church with him, and like when you lost interest. Like, did you have any moment?
Yeah, I mean, I was a really fucked up kid, so he was the most stable thing in my life. He had a car. He was way older than me. I saw the white picket fence with his parents, and I was like, oh my God, that could be us. And then I realized his parents were miserable and like not happy, and he wanted to not go to church, and I didn't care. I don't give a shit about church, but like I wanted to take that time and have fun while his parents were at church, but he always felt guilty about it, and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you feeling bad? Like, you shouldn't feel bad.
I like how Danny I like how you
studied.
skim over the fact you were like, yeah, we got together, and then a little bit later we had a kid. Wasn't this the same one you got kicked off a Disneyland train from?
Yeah, we went to Disneyland jail together.
Have you told that story on the pod before? I don't know if I heard that. Let's hear that. I want to hear.
So the monorail back in the day, you could just ride it for hours, and we were making out heavily, and I think I don't know what happened, but like just 4 Disneyland security guards took us and put us in Disneyland, like a holding cell. And because I was 16, and he was 19. My parents were not at Disneyland with us. We were with his parents. They had to come and get us out, and they were like, she's a heathen. She's bad news. Yeah, they said I was like a little devil whore or something.
Wow.
A devil whore.
And he kept on holding on to you. He's like, yeah, she's mine.
Yeah.
How long did the security guards watch before they stepped in?
I don't know, but I was in that holding tank for like 2 hours. I was pissed.
Oh,
What happened? Can you bring me to what happened like right after the holding cell? Did you guys like get dinner, or did you go back to the hotel with no Mormon dinner?
His parents got me out, and then they lectured the both of us about premarital sex, and told me that because I obviously, have had sex, they can see it in my eyes, that, I shouldn't ruin their son just because my life's ruined, and I should find the Lord. It was very weird. It's very weird.
Well, that worked.
Yeah.
No dinner?
No dinner.
Is there such a thing as a Mormon dinner?
Every Sunday.
Man,
Italian dinner. I mean,
well, the like elders will come over, like sometimes like they'll feed the missionaries. That's what they're called. They'll feed the missionaries. Yeah.
I was gonna say the Mormon I dated never did that. I feel duped.
Well, you probably weren't good enough to meet her family.
Well, I think what's funny is, Derek, you're talking about this innocent, smooching, things like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Mormons are freaks when they're teenagers.
That was not my experience. Like,
Really?
I went to Folsom High School, which is like a suburb, and there, like in the suburbs of Folsom, like Folsom was a little Mormon colony like 100 years ago. So there's just always been those conservative, like
Did you go to the school before school, like the seminary? I think it's called seminary.
I was such a weird Christian. So before I was a Mormon, I was a pretty serious like youth group kid. I was a rock and roll skateboard for Jesus type, and I thought the Mormons were weird that they didn't like hold hands when they prayed and didn't it was hard for me to like. That became one of my vettings. Like, do you guys hold hands and pray? No, well, I don't know. So I'm just trying to paint a picture that like Folsom High had these little like Game of Thrones like houses of churches that the like thousands of kids at my school, almost 4,000 kids at school, like they would just be in their little separate church houses. But the Mormons had the biggest like unity of like their conservatism, and because they're all like very uptight and keeping an eye on each other, the Mormon kids wouldn't want to be seen, or they wouldn't want the other people to know that they had been naughty. So there was enough of them to really kind of keep that we're at church right now kind of behavior and attitude. So like my Mormon friends would do naughty shit, like maybe like show you their asshole, but you couldn't touch it. Like their boyfriend could like see it. You know what I mean? Like but eventually, but I was, and so were, a lot of my friends were the anal first Christians, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah. Because you save it until you're married, so you can give your anal to everyone.
I knew a girl that basically said she had her first vaginal sexual experience at 21. She had sex at 16, but had her first vaginal sexual experience at 21.
Well, it's like that South Park song. You can suck all the dick you want and still be a virgin, Mary.
Hey, I'll add something in a minute when she leaves, but I'll wait for that.
Derek, like you were talking about the more religious, the more freaky they get. I can get it, like with this whole COVID thing, seeing hot girls like dressed like whores but with a mask on. There's something to that.
I agree. I in my awakening as an adult, like the condom's purpose of sex is kind of that, that's what a condom's supposed to be. Whether a vaginal inserted condom that ladies can wear, it's supposed to be like, hey, I don't have to kiss you, but we can fuck. I can get what I want,
Maybe.
So I want to talk about Jesse. I invited Jesse Rivera on the podcast. Just because I know you do a lot of work with Tella Novella. And he said, he wanted to let you shine, but he had nothing but good things to say about you. Like, he was like, he doesn't need anybody else on the podcast. This motherfucker's going to shine.
Jesse is really, really cool. It's really interesting. I have a very weird experience doing comedy in like the Sacramento area, because I was like filming and helping other people make their stuff like maybe 10, 12 years ago with no real interest of doing comedy. And then, so I got to know a lot of people then, I got to know Mikey Winfield and Ellis like 10 years ago. And then when I started doing stand-up, Jesse Rivera was really taking stand-up seriously, kind of as I did. And so he's one of the people that I kind of view as like a peer. Like we started kind of producing shows at the same time, roughly, and going different directions with that. But he's a really fun and inspiring person. Like, I like his stand-up a lot. I like Jesse a lot.
He's just a genuine good guy. I mean, like sometimes when we're hanging out, I just look at him and I'm like, why are we friends? Like, you shouldn't be friends with me. You're so much better than me. Like, and he's like, oh, don't worry, I won't tell anyone. And I'm like, all right, good, don't. It'll lower your fucking credit.
So, how did you get into Tella Novella? Just just by happenstance, or did you push to be in it?
I guess closer to the latter. Doing improv and being around the improv world, you know, there's like a little improv school and people hang out in it. When I was taking improv class, I had a crush on one of my fellow classmates, and being closer to 30 and reasonable adulthood, I had the sense to not really hit on my classmate too aggressively immediately, but I didn't. But that's all I wanted to do was hit on her, and so I just kind of stopped talking to her. But we remained friends, and we did improv together. And the first time I realized she wasn't seeing somebody, I asked her out, and she was already in Tella Novella. And so that was, she had taken improv with Jesse, and so she was in that show. And so because this person who became my girlfriend, became my partner, was in that show, I just kind of hung around. And they already had another person doing tech and stuff at that time, and I would just kind of like linger over their shoulder and give them notes and kind of like, oh, you could do this if you want, you know, like try to be helpful. But I just like coming from like 20 years of theater, watching Jesse starting a show with a really good idea, watching Jesse Rivera, separate from my girlfriend, Jesse Gould, watching Jesse Rivera starting his show, I just saw so many little ways I could smooth out the cracks of going from a brand new thing to a functional thing. And
that's what I thought when I joined this.
and well, I mean, and that makes sense. Like, yeah, I love your shit. And so that was just kind of a thing. Like once Jesse Rivera saw my interest and saw that I really just was trying to help and try to lift it up, and you know, we developed a kind of like relationship where he would almost like he would test what he wanted and then trust me, and then we would just make a show happen with all that.
I like Tella Novella. I think it's a great. I mean, I try to get out to every show that they have. I think it's fucking awesome. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's super fun, and I was wanting to like build to a way of like, you know, treating it more like a soap opera. Yeah. You know, have guest performers, like maybe like costume changes, but nothing crazy. Like I think robes and glasses would do a lot. If
have you
robe and then be like, oh.
Have you seen my picture of the Tella Novella swag on as pasties?
No.
Jesse was like, I'm going to give you a sticker, but I'm going to give you two. Make them pasties. And so I took a picture and made him pasties. He's like, I'm putting that on a shirt. I was like, all right, go right ahead. But yeah, so I support Tella Novella all the way.
Is that on your OnlyFans? Or is that
I don't have an OnlyFans.
You need one.
Yes. You know.
Yeah. I'm fucking old, man. I don't know who would subscribe
really?
to me. I don't know who would subscribe to me. I wouldn't.
Oh, please.
You know, mature is a fetish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck you. I'm nowhere near mature. If you know me.
You said you're old. So you do both stand-up and improv. What do you prefer more?
I guess if given that either or, I don't know. I guess I want to say first, I prefer producing more, you know, because I genuinely have the same gratification of supporting a show. Like if I know at one moment in the show I helped, you know, I did one thing to just like support it, I get the same gratification as if I'm on stage. But that aside, that's not what you asked. So I guess between improv and stand-up, I like stand-up a little more because I think I'm the best at using improv in stand-up. You know, like I think I'm a much better storyteller. I'm better at pulling a thing and listening to a person or listening to somebody, you know, who was on stage before me and using improv in that way to take the suggestion or take a thing from the audience and using it in my stand-up. I think I'm actually better at that than just doing improv. You know, so I think in that way, or you know, yeah, I think I like stand-up more.
Okay. Danny's fucking.
Are you naked?
I'm in a robe.
We all saw your butt.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't give a shit.
Right now this definitely can't go on YouTube.
I'm wearing panties. It's not like I'm not wearing anything. Calm the fuck down. I even have a shirt on under my robe and a bra. Yeah. Try putting on your bra
Nice.
when you're sunburned. It hurts. It hurts.
Well,
Nick,
let's
are you
see.
wearing
I'll
that?
put it on YouTube and let's see if it gets taken down.
It's not gonna get taken down. It's just my ass.
Well,
I
there
think
you go.
that'd be a fun challenge. The gag on this, the gag on this sunburn bra challenge. I think would
Yeah,
be,
right?
you know, like
I mean, Nick has titties. Rob has titties.
at a social distance, you know, we can get sunburned and then put bras on.
Have you been, listening to the whole socially distance thing? Like, what have you been doing with your COVID time?
I think I'm trying. I think we're trying a lot. I moved out of my mom's house like a year ago, but I still have a little garden over there. And so like with time off, my first thought is, oh, I could go do some gardening. But then I think like, what if I spread COVID to my mom? You know, like, so like my girlfriend, Jessie Gould, and I've been home a lot. Like we really haven't been hanging out too much, but I've probably seen my little sister. I've seen one friend. Yeah, my mom. So I think I've been trying, but I think my circle of people that I've seen or do see is maybe 9 people.
Mm.
Not bigger than that. But I go to the supermarket, you know. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. That's the riskiest thing I think I do is the supermarket, and then that's like the one you have to do.
I'm still doing Tinder, so I'm just out there.
She's out there spreading COVID.
I don't have COVID, motherfuckers.
Why?
Spreading something.
Yeah.
Why are you trying to get something?
I'm not trying to get COVID. I mean,
No, I'm just saying they're out there.
Dick. I'm just trying to get some good dick, man. It's hard to find.
It's herpes
Anybody
they can
think
spread
they
themselves.
already had it? Like, does anybody think they already had COVID?
No.
I do. I guess that's not reasonable, but I think I don't. People seem like everyone that I knew in comedy from improv, everybody was sick in from November to January.
I mean, I was sick. Yeah.
I just think that window of time was a lot of young people, comedian, a lot of our kind of street trash. That was the worst. That's the most sick that I think we were gonna get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Giving out tests now at Cal Expo.
Yeah,
Really?
for free.
Yeah.
No symptoms needed.
I mean, I don't want to waste somebody's test. I'm sure I'm fine.
What? You don't know.
You could do that with a Tinder date.
I was going to say, you could require that they bring their test result.
I mean,
a bonding activity together. If you can't enjoy holding hands and getting a COVID test together will fucking be fun, you know, like someone who won't enjoy waiting in line with me, I don't want to fuck. For sure. You know, I can be irritating in line, you know,
I'm very irritating in line.
Plus, she could be one of those bug chasers. She could be like, I need to know you're positive.
bug chasers? Wow.
You never heard of a bug chaser?
No.
I hear Derek laughing. I think he knows what one is.
I mean, it's been like with AIDS, it was a common term and thing that there are people trying to get it, you know.
Weight loss?
It logically could work with COVID too.
Sure. No. I'm just over it. I mean, I'm ready. I mean, I haven't been going crazy, but I have been going outside and going to the river and enjoying my time. And, when I need good dick, I just order it from Tinder. But,
really,
it is what
Tinder.
It is.
I mean, department for good dick.
You've had a hot tub this whole time, and you haven't told me till now, motherfucker. Till hot tub season's over. Fuck you.
Hot tub season's never over. Never.
That sounds like an old man thing to say. If it's too hot outside, I'm not getting in the fucking hot tub.
Hey, it's not that hot.
Do you have a pool, Derek?
I don't have a pool.
God damn it.
I stay in an apartment, but I there is a hot tub next to that garden previously mentioned in my mom's backyard that I let get empty and frogs live in it. So I mean, I should empty it out. When that happens, I'll let you know. But right now, just frogs live there.
Yeah, that's not gonna work out. No.
I just found out our COVID testing place was at a church. I was like, oh hell no.
Do you guys get into atheism much?
Rob?
Yep.
Yeah.
Raised Catholic and yeah.
I don't. I mean, I still believe, but I'm lost. I lost my faith a long time ago. So
you're somewhere between. You say you've lost it, but you still have. You hold on to something. So like, are you like an Avatar: Last Airbender, Doctor Who God believer? that was
No.
my last remnant. My last remnant of like faith is like maybe the Doctor will save everything. If anything gets too bad, the Doctor will take care of it. You know, was the last bit of my faith. You know.
No, it's more the fact of if you're not doing for self, then trying to believe someone else, trying to believe some beings that take care of it, you're kind of asking for it. I mean, same goes with anything. I mean, I know unfortunately that some things can't be given with finances or whatever abilities, but a lot of times, if someone has a boat, you can go save some other people. When someone has this, you can find those, you can network. You don't have to. But trust God and pray that there's gonna be somehow rain. Like,
tell Jesus he'll pay your bills.
Jesus.
I think if I believed in God more, it would be easier for me to play black rooms. You know, I could at least smooth out my aggressive queerity with like at least relating on a spiritual level. You know, but I don't. I honestly don't believe in God.
Okay, so I'm confused. Okay, so you say that you're queer, but your girlfriend's a girl.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
Jesse's a girl.
I'm currently dating a person who prefers monogamy. Like, I'm not that monogamous in nature.
When I met you, you said that. Yeah.
I'm also like, I'm much more interested in the individual than the genitals.
Okay.
Like, in the way of being a chaser, like, I, especially as a single person, was fascinated by the idea of dating a trans person. But to not be a creepy chaser, I didn't pursue that heavily.
Yeah.
You know, but like,
yeah.
I have more of a curiosity about genitals than an invested like expectation. I'd rather have a surprise, even like in like titties. Like, I'd rather have like a difference. You know, like I don't want them to be too like super. Not one. Symmetrical tits are great, but when they're different, I feel like it's a bigger win. You know, you've gotten two tits, one person.
I think you were the only one that feels that way because a woman hates it. You know how hard that is to find a bra? Like if you have a G and like an F, that doesn't work out very well, you know.
Danny, you clearly spend different time on the internet than I do. Like, you know, just on what you think your pornography appeal is and symmetrical breasts. I'll send you where I am, and you'll just see. There's fans of these things.
I am open. I'm open. I'm not a close-minded person. I like it. I like it.
One of them a lazy tit.
Yeah, that's a common term. You know,
underdeveloped.
The other thing, like, it can be more hardworking. Smaller ones, you know, they have more nerve endings. So, so you can get further out of it. You know, like if you're into a tit, a small tit is doing work for you too.
Oh, so small ones are better. So bigger ones, I mean, that means Danny's dead on the outside too.
I'm dead on the inside and the outside. It's okay.
I think I'm less ticklish as I've gotten fatter.
Word, right?
I'm still hella ticklish and I'm fat. But you are right. Like for me to feel a lot of shit on my tits, like you got to be like sucking really hard. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's a lot of shit to work through.
Wow.
So, you know.
And so one person, smaller boob, you work less hard. Bigger boob, you can be rougher with. You know, that's all fun. I think that's a delight. But yeah, I'm currently dating a woman. So especially in a much more heteronormative relationship, especially in quarantine when I'm all bearded.
I think you look good. I think you look really good.
Thank you. Feel good. You look good. Everybody seems like feeling sharp.
So Derek, would you consider yourself? You're talking about you're curious for pans and stuff. I mean, not trans and stuff. Would you consider yourself a pansexual then in that direction?
Yeah, I think I've heard the term demisexual.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like, you know, but I stopped. I don't know. I stopped using
hate
a lot of
labels.
that language too much because I thought I was never going to get my mom or my parents to get it. You know, and I really, in a similar way, I wanted to reach an audience in a way that they understood. My mother is a great example of an audience whose attention is just about to go away, you know? So,
I feel you.
like, I had to come out to my parents at 3 different times. Like my parents just they didn't get it. They didn't want to get it, that I still was generally, that I would still date women. They're like, well, you still like, you know, like so. In a similar way, I want people to understand bisexuality, and so I'll try to just simplify to that. And I try to, you know, just explain, like, I don't look at myself and see a man. I don't expect or need others to.
I don't know if anyone does. I'm just kidding.
That's good. You know, the nail painting, trying to hope that somebody sees like an intentional thing that I am, not like the randomness of my birth. Like I used to do a joke about I don't want people to do my racial algebra. I don't want them to look at me like, this nigger's kind of light. So, you know, a good friend's dad, when they met me, I was like, I'm you know, part black, you know, my mom's white, my dad's black, and he's like, oh yeah, you're less than half. You know, like this like white man very assuredly told me that my racial algebra, oh, you're less than half, nigga.
You're okay now, you're less than half. You know, your dad's not as equal to your mom, obviously. We all know that. If you even know your dad, Jesus. Come on now.
I did. I knew him. Yeah, like that. So in a similar way, I just kind of I have a similar goal with just sexuality. Is just to kind of be an individual and encourage others to see others as an individual person.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of those in the sex nerdy terms, I may say a demisexual, genderqueer, gender fluid, non-binary, you know, any of those I think are accurate.
Okay.
I do have to say, you can definitely tell you're white because you're using the hard R, sir.
It's funnier. I think it's really funnier. You know, if you're gonna say it, you know, like yeah, I think it's funnier. I think nigger the past comes with how many times have you been called a nigger? You know what I mean? I've did a joke like, I think some white people can say it. You know, if someone screamed nigger lover.
Guys pay me daily to say it to them on the phone.
Real?
Oh yeah, tell me you want this cock, this nigga cock. Like, it's bad. You know, scream it for me. And it's like, I have neighbors. I can't really just be screaming that shit. I live in Rancho. Like, I'm gonna get shot.
Especially if it's a white, like a ginger is telling you to say that.
Luckily, I can't see what they look like, but I can normally tell by their voice, yeah. And what they're asking.
Josh Means, is that you again?
Now I want to call you and try and trick you. You know, now I just wanna,
seriously.
I want to just do some voices and see if I can.
It's not their voice that does it. It's their request on how they want it done. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I want this guy to fuck my wife while I watch, and I, you know, sit in the corner and, you know, masturbate over a trash can.
And then are you playing the wife who's getting fucked?
Yeah.
God damn! I had occurred to me that I could set up scenarios and have so much directing. I didn't know, like, I don't know.
Role playing is like my favorite thing to do, man. I fucking love it.
Me too, but it's Dungeons and Dragons for me. Like, I didn't.
Are you a dungeon master?
I am. It's my favorite thing to do. You know, weirdly, when I started doing improv, I've never been successful at performing at the same time as having a D&D game going. To me, I have to like do one or the other. Like I was playing a lot of D&D from like 17 to 21 and kind of stopped performing a lot. I wasn't really working. I was, you know, like I was very much that kind of nerd who was in the basement, not leaving the house. And I didn't smoke weed at that time.
What a weirdo.
Very weird, like very uptight. Yeah, like, yeah, I was very, very weird. And so, but all I was doing was playing Dungeons and Dragons. And ever since that, I've been trying to find a way to like make improv more like Dungeons and Dragons.
Diversity and Dragons, Teo Morgan's show.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
I did a little help with Teo on that. I helped him a little bit with the like back end of it. Like, what would it be? You know, like he's now got some nice like meaty time slots. Because just the idea of playing pretend, if you're just playing it pretend for like 30 minutes, you really haven't gone very far. You know, in an improv-y way, like in a Herald, if what you're trying to do is comedy, then half an hour is not bad at all. You know, in a Rick and Morty type way, or any sitcom that you think of, like Friends is another good example. You just watch them fuck around for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You're not expecting to know who they're becoming. You don't think you're going to watch them change themselves, you know? You kind of expect them to always stay the same and then just watch them do silly shit, you know? But Teo's gotten, you know, like been able to do episodes and make a story out of it. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those, and the one thing I wish every time is it was longer, because the spot's not that friendly about going overtime.
Being on their little board of helping people make shows, like that's mostly about their bartending, like because they have some paid staff, like it just gets weird once you cross over into midnight, and then they have their liquor license that's supposed to end by midnight.
Right.
But if they don't get people out of the club, or they don't end the show with enough time to settle all the tips, then it just fucks up. Like it just, you know, it's being a small business, being a nonprofit. Like it's a thing that's so much easier to be sympathetic about during a pandy than it was when I was like, why is the show shorter? You know, instead of like these weird times, I try to call it a pandy. You know, the pandemic, try to make it cute. That's a Bobby Leeism. That's not mine.
So Derek, have you produced a show from, you know, nothing to, from like the get-go to where it is officially on stage and everything?
I think so. I think I'd certainly say that. I
mean, you're both shows. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, the shows I produced at Stab, I think were started kind of from nothing and then built up. The Boast, I don't think I should take too much credit for that idea, because I actually heard other comedians were doing shows called The Boast, and I heard the idea, and that was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Like Brandy Posey, Barbara Gray, and Tessa. I feel bad, but they do a podcast called Lady to Lady. It's a super good, like LA-based stand-up podcast, and they were doing them. And so I figured that by the time I produced The Boast, I would have to title it in such a way that it was like the Sacramento Boast. But by the time I got around to doing it, I couldn't even find anyone else doing them. Yeah. Like there isn't, even if you're trying to Google it, it's hard to find. So it seems like my idea, but it's really not.
It's a different concept, you know, trying to be nice to people.
Right. And so I still try to have a structure to it. So that's not exactly the same thing, because people do it as a competition a little more often. So similar to like the roast battle, people will make it a compliment battle, and you know that's done, you know, pretty often. But another show that I did from ground up was called Rebuttal. It's a debate style show. One of the things I've been really, really motivated to do, just looking at comedy and looking at what I think is super funny and all the really cool shit that does exist. So I'm like, well, what do I want to see that I can't find? And one of those things was comedians being smart, comedians using their argumentative chops intentionally, you know, because we're good at that. A comedian who's not gone to college and isn't well read can still be very good at proving a logical fallacy and showing how somebody is lying or making something up, you know. And so Rebuttal kind of came out of the idea that I wanted one specialist and one comedian to be on a team and debate another team of a specialist and comedian. And then we have a host, and I have a judge, my friend Jenna Schwartz, and she works at the courthouse, and so she's a funny person to kind of play the judge. And so that's a show that's really gone pretty well. More people show up to that than The Boast. So as a producer, it feels more valid, you know. It makes money pretty safely, and I'm pretty proud of that. Like I've been hoping, like, you know, you guys are doing podcasting. I've been hoping and trying to build that into a podcast. I think that idea would work.
Yeah.
I also did a lot of theater. So I helped a friend of mine produce a couple of musicals. Like, we wrote songs and stuff. We built puppets. Like, we did a lot of like work for the show and then to really just do a couple of small productions. But even those, I wasn't as in the weeds of every detail as much as with like Boast or Rebuttal or Imported Comedy. Imported Comedy was also my idea that, you know, we put together, but a stand-up show, I don't, you know, it wasn't like I set anything up. I just kind of invited people, you know, again, looked around, and I was looking at the comedians that I think are the funniest, or the people that I think are coolest, with like, because I knew Hassan a little bit, you know, like 10, 12 years ago when he was still doing stand-up around.
How long have you been doing comedy? Or like in the scene, I guess.
I guess in the scene, maybe like 12 years.
But only like doing it maybe a year and a half?
I would say that I've been doing comedy maybe 3 years. Okay. Yeah. But I was on the scene a little bit like 12 years ago.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you said that you were part of like, I guess, a Comedy Spot like team that, you know, figures out what shows are going to be good and this and that. Like, how? So if I wanted to pitch a show to Comedy Spot, like in the future, what is the process for that? Because I don't really ever go to Comedy Spot. I haven't had the best experience there with, you know, getting on and all this other bullshit. So I don't really go there that often. But if I wanted to pitch a show, what would be the steps to do that, I guess?
It's actually pretty much just a submission. If you say you're ready and you have all you want for your show, like you have the cast and stuff, they just put you on the schedule. Okay. That's what it's intended to be. And then beyond that, like what I do on the board is, if somebody says like, so Steve Ferris does a show called like he does a late night style show at Comedy Spot where he interviews people. And so a few times I've just found the guests for him. You know, so he booked the show and he had his assistant. And so he knew what the structure was going to be, but letting him be kind of surprised by the acts was a thing that Steve and I thought would be funny.
Yeah.
You know, so little shit like helping cast a show, or helping it with like technical needs, you know, is kind of the assistance I give. But otherwise, it's really just, they try to just let anybody put on a show.
That's good to know, because I didn't know that. I've never, I mean, I'm going to try that next when COVID ends. I'm going to try to put together my own show, you know, do something different. That's what I've been told by a bunch of fucking people. Quit going to open mics and put on your own show. So here we go.
You should.
Do you have any do you have any issues with like competition, like with Stab Comedy or even Punchline or something like that?
I'm glad you asked. Like, this is a funny thing that I think like deserves to be talked about. And so I guess like Brian Kroll kind of built Comedy Spot, you know, himself. John Ross kind of came in and out during different windows of time. But Brian really built a lot of that, and you know, Laura Knoll did a lot to help, you know, build Comedy Spot. And for a window of time, I would say kind of between the time that Comedy Spot had its own like, or as Comedy Spot had its own like school of improvisers, then there became the kind of like jealousy of don't do shows over there, do shows over here. And Brian and I kind of personally got into it about it. And I think after the weird argument and then like gross, you know, conversation that Brian and I had, he really lightened up about it. He decided that that wasn't going to be a thing that he jumped on other people about. And then I think it took maybe 6 months for Brian to realize that his shows, his evening, you know, his weekend shows were going to make whatever money they were going to make. And the show at Stab was not going to hurt Comedy Spot.
Yeah.
You know, like he could really see that he would have a sold out show, you know, but
it's probably easier to work together than it is to like, you know, always compete, especially since you're having the same comics at Stab and at Comedy Spot. I think that it would be a real, you know, unfortunate thing if they were like, oh, well, you can only go to Comedy Spot or you can only go to Stab. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think the improvisers were the ones that really, I mean, like stand-up comedians, I haven't noticed or to have that expectation especially for Comedy Spot, because Comedy Spot's like a smaller club. They're not really paying a lot of people. They don't really have that, like, you have to be here. But improv feels like that a little bit more, you know, because the improvisers, like, there's improv shit going on almost every night of the week. You know, on a Tuesday or Wednesday, you probably have a rehearsal if you're not, you know, like, for the weekend show.
You have a rehearsal for improv?
Yeah, the show with Jesse Rivera, we rehearsed, you know,
Okay.
Tella was rehearsing at least once a month, if not twice a month, you know.
Okay.
Improv is like Ruby Setnick, you know, was saying if she didn't do improv twice a week, she didn't think she could do it, you know, or she said at one point that if she didn't do it at least twice a week, she wasn't funny. And that may be true about me as well, but I haven't looked hard enough to think I haven't done the homework to be sure.
Sunk deep within yourself.
but yeah, so I think that kind of competition between Comedy Spot and Stab is kind of dead, and also the guy who managed Punchline, you know, a few years ago isn't there anymore.
Yeah,
There's
Phil.
management there, so that kind of personal squabbles have been crushed from that. So I could kind of officially say from Comedy Spot, there's nothing but love going out towards everything else. Like there's not there's not a real resentment, but I haven't been that plugged in during this pandemic. You know, once kind of show stopped, what I did there kind of dried up too. So, but yeah, I think there's a fun window that if you understand who is doing what, I think a lot of times if you have a brand new show and you like Danny, you know, if you want to do a show, I think you could likely get it on at Stab, you know, a month before you would at Comedy Spot, because Jesse Jones may have a night that he's like, oh, I need a show on this night, you know, and it could be plugged in. And so if it's, and then you fall into the funny thing as all producers fall into is how much time do you think you need to tell people to come? How much do you need to promote? You know, because you haven't been producing a lot of shows, I bet if you just do the Facebook bullshit of inviting people actually on Facebook for your first show, I bet you could fill out Stab. Yeah. Plenty, you know, at least for that first time, you know, and then try to, you know, I would, you know, same with Comedy Spot, you know, just leaning into that, or get the 30, 50 people that make Comedy Spot feel really full, you know, that like first time that you're asking people to come. And then as you know, I don't know, I'm off on a whole other thing now, but
no, that's good advice. Cause I mean, I was going to do it at Blacktop. Obviously Blacktop's not an option anymore. You know, and I don't hang out downtown. I don't really go to Stab. I don't really go to Comedy Spot. I have been to Stab more, but you know, I guess it's just something I need to think about getting integrated with, you know, downtown improv comics.
I don't know if you have to, you know, like I would argue, I think everybody should take a class. You know, if you wanted to take an improv class and let that, you know, be a reason for you to be around that space and see it where that took you, I think that would be great. But I mean, you know, I like Blacktop very much. You know, I want to produce something with Blacktop. I've been thinking about trying to, you know,
they closed,
but they're still going to produce shows. So I mean, it's just a thing.
Are they?
Yeah, that's what he said, pretty officially.
Oh, okay.
Is that he wants to keep producing Blacktop, you know, shows, and so I want to help build, you know, that improv and that producing community at Blacktop, because there are people there that are not going to the other clubs. You know, like there are improvisers, there's people that want to help make shows. And so, you know, at this point, or, you know, as a producer, or if comedy is a community, then that's probably a community that I feel needs more support than Comedy Spot. You know, and there's people there to share that love and give that energy, you know, back into a show.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have to put on a produced podcast show then.
I'd love to. I'd love to.
Talking about that.
Have you guys done it live?
Yeah, well, we used to record only at Blacktop, and like, you know, we had a live audience, which
it was like two people.
Shut up! I was gonna not say that.
I think we had like 6 or 7.
Yeah, I used to bring them in, man. I used to bring in all those strangers.
Well, how many years did you have an audience?
Well, just until like April 1st was our last day of recording at Blacktop. So I mean, we've had an audience the entire time we've had a podcast.
Well,
We
and
had the
yeah,
opportunity to have an audience for every.
we had more of an audience when it was being promoted on the Blacktop website, and that sort of went by the wayside. So it was pretty much just me posting like, "Hey, we're doing the episode today. Come on by."
Not just you.
And since then, the audience did drop down. It mainly me.
We had that creepy guy that showed up.
Always when I'm around, always.
No, remember the guy who was like,
oh, the one that said my joke was tasteless?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say that to say the other comparative. So if you guys are so in my mind, so I can just speak from my perspective, if Gag on This is the Blacktop podcast and Stab podcast is the Stab podcast and Top 10 List is the Comedy Spot podcast, the audience that you guys were bringing was equally on par with the other ones. Yeah. You know, like both of those shows really have a hard time bringing in an audience unless they're really in the groove of marketing it. Now, Stab has been going like 6 years, constantly having an audience every time, and so they've gotten a following, but that's still not every show.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I from an outsider, I feel like I see you on that same par, you know?
That's what I like to hear.
But yeah, I mean, a way to gamify stuff, you know, that's the way that I think about putting it up. Finding a way to make, so if Gag on This is like the brand, if Gag on This is the company, then what is the live show that brings everybody out? You know, like
right.
And because Danny has so much, like, I think I'm having these fantasies of the Home Improvement show about Danny. I said this to you at that birthday party, but like, I want to make Danny's Home Improvement where about the sex work hotline comedian lady, you know, that dual life and her kids, you know, like imagine if on Home Improvement, you know, they, instead of them, oh, what car are you working on? You know, like, oh, Mom, are you in the middle of a fuck phone call? You know, like I'd watch that show, you know, but I think you could do that with a Gag on This of like a dating game of just have Danny start with your guest and with they don't see each other and she's doing a phone call. And just let that play out until somebody, or, you know, until whoever doesn't know who the guest is can guess who the guest is. And, you know, like, and then that for a live audience, then a few little like.
Oh, like they call me and then we talk, but we don't. Right. Oh, fuck yeah. Let's do it, boys.
And then that's how I'd start the show as like a fun gimmick. And then you could have your interview bits. You could have, you know, segment. I don't know. That's what I would start with, just because I think.
Yeah. But a lot of people are not that comfortable, you know, getting down and dirty and talking about sex just in general. Like people are like, yeah, like, you know, I sound probably like a giant fucking whore just because I'm comfortable talking about sex, you know, and it's like, it shouldn't be an uncomfortable subject.
I remember the first time you came on, Nick was like, you have to fake a phone sex call with her. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to fucking do that. My wife
I did say that, and you pussed out, man.
I did puss out. I would puss out again.
And this is very funny because it would take me minutes to bring you a still active conservative Mormon boy who would do the scene with Danny of phone sex. You know, he would morally have no problem doing a scene, playing pretend phone sex.
Yeah.
I have a very jealous wife.
who listens to your podcast?
No, but she could. And that's the thing, is that thread is always hanging over my head.
Oh my God! Well,
I love the surprise on Derek, like that listens to your podcast.
She won't listen to my other podcast.
A supportive wife? What is that?
I'm just happy she lets me do it.
Oh my God!
Okay.
Damn, that sounds fucking whipped, doesn't
it? You're such a God. I just want to take you out to a whorehouse and let you free. God, you're so trapped.
I don't want to pay for it.
I'll pay for it. It's on me.
I think that's another very gamified way to, you know, so in the Gag on This live show, Good Boy Rob would be another segment. You know, that will skirt the line of getting Rob in trouble. You know,
Yes!
How far is the line? How
Oh
far
my
is the
God,
line?
Derek!
Good
after
boy
this,
Rob, eat ass today.
after this, we're gonna Zoom later. Fucking, we're doing it.
please, because
We're doing it,
then
Derek.
we bring Rob on stage, and then we could get some burlesque performers, and then he could just try to ignore them. You know, and
He's
then
already in trouble.
As soon as he,
Yeah, I'm already picturing the fucking talk I'm getting that day.
I bet
I
you.
took a burlesque class, and it was so much harder than I thought it was gonna fucking be.
Well, I can imagine.
It was so. I was like, I could dance sexy. No, I was fucking winded. I was out of breath. I was like, oh God, this is horrible. But yeah, I got an outfit from it, so you know, I get.
Nick, we have to get her gag on this pasties with the mouth.
He already has a
Did that.
picture.
Huh?
OnlyFans, get that premium content.
Yeah.
Make it a
sorry.
Patreon. If you get Patreon, you get a picture of Danny and her pasties.
Oh my God, no.
Well, I mean, if she's not opposed to it, it gets money coming in.
Or you get a picture of Rob and his pasties, whatever.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh, you're
Harry.
in trouble.
She won't care about that.
Okay.
She won't care about you showing off your body.
Yeah, like, what's to show off?
That's
Okay.
hers. That's her body.
So then you'll do the dancing, Rob.
Yes,
Boy
so
Rob,
sexy.
do a little sexy moment, and that's good. That's a strong bid.
Yeah,
You know,
Shake these B cups, baby.
You know
Let's
what's
do
funny
it.
though?
he's so
She
hairy.
doesn't listen to the podcast, but I bet you if we put on a live show with an audience, she'd be front and
She'd be
fucking
there.
center.
Oh,
No,
she
she
would.
would not.
Even if
She'll
I
be
told her
there.
it was at a different club, she'd find it. Yeah, it's
Wanna
over at
see what you're
Luna's.
doing.
Meet us there.
You know, yeah, I'm careful on what I say now because I don't want her to hate me. But her and I are now Facebook friends, and I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. You know,
Yeah, she
put on
asked me
my
about that.
hoary
It's like, is
ways.
this a good idea or not?
And you gave your blessing? You idiot.
I have nothing to hide. I'm fucking. And
I
she
don't
knows
tell
I'm
her
gonna
what to
lick his
do.
calves. It's fine.
She
Fine.
still hasn't liked our gag on this page. She likes our post though.
Oh, and log into her shit and like it, man. I even make my fucking Tinder date subscribe. What the fuck?
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
the way.
You love whipped guys.
I like when people do what I tell them to. Yes.
Whipped.
Oh,
I mean,
That's direct marketing.
that's
You know?
marketing. That's fucking networking. I don't see you guys fucking doing that. I'm putting my
Wait.
life on the line for this.
Really? You don't see me
Really?
with my Photoshop and my Adobe and my Premiere?
I mean, how many subscribers you get this week?
Ooh, really? How to go there?
Sorry,
I'm just-
I was
I'm
too
just
busy
fucking
doing
with you.
research on our guests.
I know. I don't do anything but show up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll
It's
just
a
shut my
long
mouth.
game, man. I'm sitting on. So Nick, I am currently sitting on a back catalog of like 10 episodes of 3 different podcasts that I haven't started releasing yet. And that's not including Rebuttal, and including the episodes of Rebuttal that we recorded at Stab. So I have 3 of those. So I have 4 different podcasts that I don't know if anybody gives a fuck enough for me to start releasing them. You know, so like, so
Right.
Nick, the work you're doing, man, I have so much respect for. Yeah, I know, I love podcasting, but it so much feels like shouting into a void. You know, like producing shows like, you know, in person, online, it feels like screaming into this void. So that work, man, it matters. You just gotta
Nick
keep
is a
popping
very
those
hard
Tinder dates.
worker.
Get some Tinder dates, Nick, and you got to tell them about the podcast, dog.
Ah,
You got to do both. You got to do it all.
that's funny. He'd be murdered. His fiance would kill him.
One thing I did think about, and Rob shut this down immediately, is I thought we could both create Grindr profiles and see who did better.
Oh my God, Rob would do so much better than you.
I play that game.
See, I get guilted
I
into
don't
putting out. Be like, oh, he spent all this money and drove all this way. I just had to pinch the helmet a little bit. I mean,
Oh man.
That's the generation you're from, Rob. You're
Exactly.
from that. You know, you're polite.
exactly. You don't ghost
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, you do. If they don't meet the qualifications, yes, you do.
There was no catfishing when I was growing up.
Oh my God, I am so tired of guys catfishing. Can I just tell you, I didn't think it was a thing until recently, and I was like, what the fuck?
Oh, that happened.
I was like, how old is this picture? And he's like, oh, it's like 10, 11 years old. I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta get the fuck out of here.
Same person. I have a catfishing story, actually.
Yeah? Was it a chick?
No. I was 18 years old. I had been doing every year. I did a musical, like this big theater show thing. It was like different songs for different musicals. So it was just dancing, singing, whole show. Okay. My little sister would do it. My dad would do it. My mom would work in the box office. There's all these families there. There was like 200 people in the cast. As soon as I turned 18, this man that I had known from year to year from there started sending me text messages as if he was this other lady. You know, he made up this character, and he told me, "Oh, I have this coworker who needs somebody to do modeling for her. Derek, would you do this? Would you do this modeling?" And so I'm kind of just talking to this lady, and he's making up all this stuff, talking about the clothes that she wants to make for me, and then it leads to, okay, well, I'm gonna make a shirt for you, but I have to see your chest to know how to make the shirt. And so under the guise of making me clothes was like tricking me to send nudes to this person. And Ray, the guy catfishing me, worked at a cell phone store. So he just would get other cell phones and then just make up that lady had switched phones, or she got it, you know, like. And he would. And so at ripe 18, you know, he got a few nudes out of me. But and then I got creeped out, and I'm like, no, I don't want to talk to you anymore. But every 6 months, either as himself or the other character, he would pop back up and be like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" And like try to get pictures. And that happened every 6 months from when I was 18 until I was 21.
Jesus.
And told my dungeon master, my master, I wish it was. I loved that guy. But I told my buddy Ben about this, and he was like, "That guy's tricking you," you know. And Ben kind of, with just me telling him the story, was able to explain how I was being catfished by this, you know, this guy. And he did the long con. Like he you know, I knew him when I was like 8 years old. He waited till I was 18.
Ew.
Creepy.
Yeah. So catfishing. It is a spicy
You know,
romance.
to me, it's a waste of fucking time. Don't waste my time. Don't waste my time.
That's a lot of work for just a couple of nudes.
Yeah. A little phone sex. I mean, it was very bizarre. One time was phone sex where the person who I thought was a woman on the other end was just not saying anything and was and waiting, tell us, you know, and had me just talking. I don't remember ins and outs of that at 18. Yeah.
I think it's so funny that ever since we had Anti-Vice on, when you said Dungeon Master, I did not think Dungeons and Dragons. My head did not go there instantly.
You gotta go kink, huh?
Right?
Nice.
Yeah, it's much cooler, you know. And now in this like sex positive world, people are learning about that more sexy dungeon master.
Mm-hmm.
Danny, you said burlesque was hard. I think burlesque is hard too. I've done a couple burlesque shows. And did you perform?
So COVID happened before our final performance, but I took 5 classes, and we were gonna have like a little performance, but it got ex-nayed due to all this shit. But I met some really cool chicks, and I mean, obviously I was not anywhere near as good as some of them, but it was a fun thing to do. I mean, I like burlesque. I think it's sexy, and I would like to incorporate comedy and burlesque. I think that would be great, and especially for a kind of show that I would have, obviously. I just think it's a nice mix-up, and it's a great way to get guys there too, you know?
The other thing is burlesque spaces are much more feminist comedy spaces.
Yeah.
I've been, you know, since I kind of figured that out maybe 2 years ago, I've been trying to encourage more stand-up and improvising women to produce shows with burlesque performers, because all those shows are produced and run by women. And like there's no catcalling, you know, like they're totally
it's just
open
better.
to, right. And they're totally open to stand-ups. Like they would happily have a stand-up during the show. You know, so in the age where we're trying to learn how to have less male-dominated stand-up, I think we can also win by just producing more variety shows, doing more shows with burlesque, you know, just shows produced by women instead of chasing the men and asking them to book women.
Yeah, I don't want to. I think you should just book funny. You know what I mean? But I don't want to. I think a lot of women are like, well, there's only guys on that show, and it's like, okay, well then make your own fucking show. You know, don't complain about it. Do it. If you're not being put on shit, they're not going to put you on just because you have a vagina. I mean, they're just not going to. And the fact that you're throwing a fit about it is ridiculous. It makes me not want to be a woman. Like, I want to be put on a show because I'm funny, and if I can't be put on a show, then I'll just make my own. Fuck it.
I love and dig that, and I mean, and that is the perspective that a lot of like especially in like film, a lot of Black and a lot of queer people argue that same logic that you're arguing, Danny. You know, that you just have to make it for yourself because that's the only option.
Yeah.
As a show producer, I really want to have at least 50%, if not more, women on the shows I book.
Really?
Weirdly, the only show I fuck up that the most with is imported comedy, where because once I'm already going through the window of immigrants or people of color, sometimes I'll book that and realize, oh shit, there's only one girl on the show. You know, I just got a bunch of fucking dudes. But I give a fuck about that, and I give a fuck about even like if I'm going to produce a show with somebody, how often do they book other people than them? You know, like.
Yeah, see, and I think that you and I should have a good conversation after this, because there's a lot of things to this aspect that I have not thought of. I mean, I think producing a show is a lot within itself, but there's a lot of fucking aspects that I haven't even considered, you know? So I want to try to get my ducks in a row before I do it, because I don't want it to be a failure, you know?
This would be such a fun time. I'm way down to do that. And Jesse Rivera is also such a great, like, I respect him so much with the way he books shows. You know, he does a really good job about being a little more women heavy. You know, I think with all of his, you know, stand-up shows, it's good shit.
Yeah, and I mean, the women of the comedy community trust Jesse too. He's not a creeper.
Right.
There's a lot of fucking creepers out there.
Yeah.
Not that I don't mind working with creepers. I like creepers. That's fine. But I'm just saying, like, Jesse is he's you know, you can trust him. He's friendly.
I mean, you're so sweet, Danny. Like the way that you're like open to creepers. You know, creepers aren't bad either. You know, like I think I'm a saved creeper. You know, I think you know, for me to come out and for me to wear my own nail polish made me less creepy from the inside out. You know what I mean? But so I appreciate that you're open to that. But yeah, it's weird. Oh, but I talked about burlesque to say I did some burlesque shows, and I like doing burlesque. I actually had done burlesque. I was in drag doing a cabaret show and doing burlesque shows and stuff before I started doing stand-up, just from doing like theatery shit. And so I really love that stuff, but I'm terrified of doing like choreography on stage, like doing like somebody teaching me step ball change, turn kick. Like I get really nervous. I can't remember the order of it. And so Jessie Gould, my girlfriend, and I did a burlesque show at Harlow's, at Momo's, the little place above Harlow's, a couple months ago. And what I did in that show, Jessie just stripped traditionally. So she went out and she's just stripping, doing the like burlesque strip thing. I set up a piano and a keyboard, and I started like playing keyboard, and then I set up a loop machine so the keyboard would just keep looping. And then while I was playing, and then I started singing, and so I just started pretending to play piano because it was just on a loop machine, and I started throwing my clothes off and stripping while Jessie was stripping. So like we're both stripping kind of at different moments and just throwing off clothes into the audience, and that was my burlesque number. Nice. That was my version of I wanted to get naked and I wanted to do it for comedy's sake, but I wasn't gonna learn any choreography. So.
Are you boys down to get naked with me on stage? Rob, Nick, CharRon?
I'm always.
No.
Oh, goddamn.
I am always.
Right.
The legal rule is if you're doing it for the sake of theater, you can go full nude.
I mean, people are going to be laughing at me for sure. Yeah.
They laugh at you with your clothes on. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, as long as we stay silly, you know, you can book someone for a much sexier purpose, as you know, if the goal is still theater and comedy, you know.
I'm just trying to get them back into comedy. They both stopped doing comedy, so you know.
Well, we bring the podcast down.
Rob, you're muted. You're muted.
Right,
Sorry,
he doesn't
the kid
know.
ran in. No, I went up on Friday of February. I was starting to get back in.
All right, I'll give you that.
Yeah, I'm not. I'll be honest.
Fuck you.
Especially in this age of Corona, I want an improv team. Tella Novella is the closest I have to an improv team. So I would very much like to actually have my own team that I've been practicing and playing with, so we could do shows.
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody have any questions before we get on to our next thing?
No. Are you going to talk about the date we went on, CharRon and I?
Yes. Yeah, we'll save the comic studio. Okay, so yeah, we'll save that for after this. So, Derek, we were informed prior to you hopping on into recording that CharRon and Danny D went on a date.
Yes.
A long time ago.
And
go ahead. You can start.
Well, hold on. I just have to give the backstory. We've been doing this podcast for close to a year and a half with Danny, and CharRon has been on for the last couple of months, and this has never fucking come up. Ever. So I'm a little upset at you two. But please tell us everything.
There's not that much. It was a November night. CharRon asked me if he could take me on a date. I said, sure. We met at Stone's because obviously I'm a huge gambler.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go to this other place to eat, but they were closed. So that was kind of a failure. So we went back to Stone's and he ordered like Brussels sprouts and some healthy shit.
Ew.
And and I asked him to like cite me poetry, which was cool. And then I believe my daughter and her cousin got drunk and I had to go pick them up after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well.
But we ate Brussels sprouts together.
We were talking a little. We were talking for at least for a few weeks.
Yeah, we were talking for a couple weeks.
Now, did you know
CharRon hates your kid?
I actually never met him.
I can't control the teenagers.
Did you know that CharRon was with Anti-Vice at that time or no?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, kind of.
Well, CharRon's like, yes, absolutely, you did.
Because she came on to our podcast.
That's how we met. I was on Fat Chicks on Top, and then we didn't fornicate. It was a very PG date. But I only went on 3 dates last year. He was one of them. So
That's disappointing.
I know guys don't take me on dates. That's fine. That's probably just my quality of gentleman. I
think it was more funny the fact that I had to go to her gambling spot to pick her up while she was already gambling.
I had a problem, man. I had a problem. I don't have a problem anymore.
That's temporarily.
Because they're closed.
No, okay, whatever. Don't
remember when she used to play slots during the podcast?
I'm doing it right now.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I'm just kidding. My phone's outside.
Derek, would you eat Brussels sprouts on a date?
They're very
toughie.
good.
That's a toughie.
It's a gassy food.
I am a vegetarian. I'm one of those plant-based nerds. I do a bit that I am a genderqueer, vegetarian, atheist. The people that want to fuck me, nothing bums them out more than learning I hate astrology.
You and Danny are gonna fight.
Yeah, right. See, there you go. The people that but I love that kind of food. I like Brussels sprouts, but if my date's not eating it, I wouldn't eat it. So I would just sit there, because I don't want to be the one with the stinkier breath on the date. If we're both doing it, sure, but I'm not going to be the stinky one. I have a lot of fear about being the stinky one.
That's exactly
normally when I go on dates, I just let the man order. Like I'm just like, whatever, fucking order, I'll eat it.
But I thought I had more like I also had like a burger and stuff. You had a burger.
And then you gave me a talk about being diabetic, and I was like, okay.
Oh my god, what a
awesome.
great date conversation!
Like,
no, she busted up. Why you eating that? Why you eating that? It's like
I did not say it like that.
Ooh,
yes,
type 2. I'm so wet.
Yeah. So then I felt like a jackass. I was like, oh, I didn't realize. Okay, my bad. I'm gonna not get dessert.
Prick your finger.
Actually, I do.
I should probably prick my own.
Danny on the date. I'm picturing Danny doing phone sex with CharRon.
What's your blood sugar count? Oh, that's a great number.
124.
Diabetic.
I don't even know what that means.
I think that's bad.
No, it's
No,
actually
it's good.
pre-diabetic.
I'm going to say this thing not to Rob, but to Danny. So I spent a few years intimately close to a diabetic, a type 1 diabetic.
Oh.
And that type 1 diabetic was a squirter in the sexual place. So I guess you can picture a vagina.
My best friend's a squirter. I know all about it.
And so being a diabetic squirter, if her blood sugar was high, like when she would squirt, it would be noticeably sweet.
Yes.
Ah.
A noticeable CharRon, you're nodding. Did that come across in the podcast or just in your own testing?
Own testing.
Patrice O'Neill said that. He's like, man,
Yeah,
that's how I knew
sugar.
I was diabetic. I was pissing on my bitch, and she was like, oh, baby, it's so sweet. Like,
yeah,
you don't get it checked out.
It tastes like birthday cake was
Yeah.
what she said.
So let me know if you guys want to try my pee. We can do it that way, or we can prick a finger. Either way.
I mean, it comes out sterile.
What?
Ew.
Diabetic?
I could be. You never know. I could be a lot of things.
But I ain't gonna lie. She did try to push me away so many times. She was trying like, oh, I like doing this. I like being like, I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, it's very nice. You know, it's like, cool, you like being spanked. That's nice. That's cool. You know, like trying to make me feel like it's like, yeah, I like to be strangled. I like to be choked. I'm like,
I never said that.
you did say that, and I was like, okay, are you trying to push me away or?
I didn't. You seem like a very, put together, classy gentleman. I didn't know. I don't.
Did I give you the dark side look? Like he does.
Yeah, well, I didn't know what the fucked up shit you do with anti-vice. I mean, I realize now what I was saying was child's play, but you never know. I had a good time.
Talking after shows, Danny and I think are a similar date in that way too. I try to scare a person away the first date.
Yeah.
I'd be like, this is what I do. This is how I'm crazy. I don't want to do it later. I try to just give my whole report card of how I'm fucked up that as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I would get it out of the way through texting before the date if I can. You know?
Yes.
Yeah. It works. But.
So you guys got close to saying, so was it just like, so CharRon being like more polyamorous? Was it just more like scheduling conflict that there was no more continued dating?
No, mostly she had I think you're moving and some other things were going on. So
I'm pretty fucked up in the head, Derek. So I have no idea what I want, and I have no idea how to get what I don't. I don't know what I need or what I want. I'm a very like instant gratification person, obviously. But I like anti-vice, and I've fucked up enough homes to, not be fucking people's husbands or boyfriends or, especially if they're fucking look like they could beat my ass. I'm good. I'm not going to do it. I want a permission slip if you want me to go on a date with your boyfriend.
Damn. That sounds like very healthy polyamory. And you polyamorous listeners out there, you should give some written permission slips.
And that would be fine.
That is polite. That's good. That's good talk.
Because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I like all kinds of people, but like if you tell me you're in an open relationship, I'd like to hear it from your other partner who says that too.
You didn't ask.
I know I didn't ask because I don't know how to ask that. I don't know how to ask.
I could have given you confirmation.
Fucking how many married guys tell me it's we're getting divorced? No, you're not. You guys just had a baby. Fuck. Like, it is what it is.
Time for a divorce.
Right?
Jesus.
Let's have a baby to save this.
All right. So you've listened to the podcast, you said, Derek, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we do this thing called Inside the Comic Studio.
Brilliant.
Before we get into it, Derek, plug any social or anything you want to plug.
Check out, I guess I'm on Instagram, DXDOZIER on Instagram, and follow Imported Comedy. There's an Imported Comedy Facebook page, and we got an Instagram too. And then you could also follow Mikhail Chernyavsky. He's the person who I kind of make the face of Imported. So if you want to give him a follow, he's a very funny stand-up comedian. We'll be working on some shit in the future. I actually just started, I'm trying to produce a body positive comedy show. So very similar to Imported, but have fat people and people with physical disabilities, and just talk about, and trans people, just talk about body positivity specifically, and give those people a stage to do so. So as soon as this fucking pandy's over, look out for body positive comedy. Yeah, that will be hosted by Dan Smith.
Oh, cool. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
All right, Danny.
You can find me at Rad Chick Forever, Facebook, fucking Venmo, Cash App, IG, or you can just come down to the river and find me. I'm at the Cliff Banks. That's where I'm at.
Oh, great.
Very
Now
exciting.
some random person's going to come find you and you're going to be dead in a bit.
Seriously.
Man, yesterday was a busy day. It was fine. That's fine.
All right, Rob.
I get my side project, Stand Up Dad's podcast. I do that with my buddy Mike. We talk about parenting stuff. New episodes come every Sunday, wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Big C.
My podcast. What are you laughing for? No, my podcast is I Am Big Poetry Podcast, where we put out 2 shows a week. The next show we got going on is Janie the Messenger. She's from Oakland, California. Check it out.
Nice. I just realized we got like a Brady Bunch thing going on. Like I could look to like my left and be like, of a lovely lady, and then like you two can be my kids.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
And then I can look down and be like, oh, there's CharRon.
So
are you Alice?
legitimate?
Am I? I mean,
On mine, I'm in the middle. I'm Alice, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Give it to me, Sam.
This is officially my first real Zoom of the pandy. So
Oh,
like,
really?
Really?
I don't even. Yeah, I'm using my girlfriend's laptop. Like,
Oh,
you know, to be late to the podcast, I tried to be all set up.
yeah.
Oh, it's okay.
It happens.
At least you showed up. I mean,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
That's
Some people are
amazing.
like,
We
gag
haven't
on
had
this.
anyone not show up.
We had one. I'm not going to say his name,
Yeah, we have one.
I don't know.
but that was when we were at the club. Anyways,
Oh, I remember that.
episode description of the show and guest social media. Email us gagonthispodcast@gmail.com. Website gagonthispodcast.com. Follow me on Twitter at @TheBigNickJ. Okay. So we ask all comics the same 5 questions. Oh, wait. Inside the Comic Studio is brought to you by Ballsy Brand Ball Wash and Ball Guard. Promo code GAG15 for 15% off your entire order, and take care of your crotch nuggets. Or jizzberries, however you prefer.
Works.
Yeah. All right. Number 1. Question number 1. First joke that landed well.
Of mine?
Yeah.
Obviously, right. If you were to ask every comedian historically what the first joke that landed well was, that would. Okay. I'm not proud of it, but I'll do it. So I would walk up to the mic and I would do, hi, my name is Derek. And I would speak with a weird lisp, and I would finger spell and do sign language. Oh, Rob's doing some, yeah. I would finger spell, so I would pretend to be deaf. I would go up to the mic. I bailed immediately right now because I feel like a fucking asshole. But the first open mic I did, that was my opening joke. I pretended to be deaf, and then I would say, wow, you guys are nice people. How long would you have let me do that? Would you have let me do that for 5 minutes? And so then I put it on the audience that they're good people for letting me, be a deaf stand-up. And so I think I did that maybe 3 times before I was like, I can't do that joke anymore. I don't know why, but I'm sure that's an awful joke that a deaf person wouldn't find funny. You know what I mean? Like, that's not good material. But I think that's my first one that landed well.
Yeah, they'd be like, what's up with this guy? I said it, fuck it.
The little bar in Roseville liked it.
The almond tree?
It was before. I think it was still, was it Boxing Donkey?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I love that bar.
Was in SAC.
Favorite thing about the local comedy scene?
I guess my favorite thing about the local comedy scene is I think talent does shine over seniority. And I do think that's pretty cool. I think there's a lot of places, there's a lot of producers who are happy to see, I don't know, I'll take a little credit. There's a few people that I booked on Imported that after I booked them on Imported, they just started getting all the shows. Like Miriam Musavi did one show for me, then was on all the shows. Or two shows actually. She did Imported, then she hosted the Boast, and the Boast was the first thing she'd ever hosted, and then she was just a fucking runaway train. And I feel like my buddy Hussein is similar. Hussein, did Imported and then was just off to the racehorses. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's really fun.
All right, one thing you dislike or would like to see changed in the local scene.
I think I want to see the established people, the people with like credits. And I want to see them, instead of explaining stand up to younger comics and telling them all about it, I want to see them do shows that facilitate that. I want to see more people, that are, that do that, like, Billy Anderson, who does Gateway Show. I think he does a really good job of bringing people to his level, and Jesse Rivera tries to do that too. I think those are two really good examples, so stuff like that. I'd like to see that happening more at like the Punchlines, type places.
You gonna say something, Danny?
No, I said that's really great advice. Like that's really that's smart.
All right, thought you were gonna contribute more than that.
No. I'm tired. What do you fucking want? We're at the end of this. I'm just kidding.
With you.
I'm just kidding.
Who's your favorite local comedian?
She moved to LA, so my first would be Diana. I'd say Diana Hong.
Diana Hong?
Yes. Would be my first, but she's all LA now. So
yeah.
So let me say
she's a good one though.
I'm gonna say Luna.
Danny Luna?
No. Luna. Alice Luna.
Okay, I know Alice.
I don't know who the fuck it is.
Yeah.
She does like it's so in the age of there being the more progressive, the more like gentler, the smarter stand-up rooms. And Comedy Spot is often kind of considered a nerdier stand-up room, or more conservative. Alice does a lot of jokes about having AIDS, and she's so fucking dark, but she's dark in an NPR kind of way. Like the dark material she does is the kind of shit that you could get away with on NPR because it's so real, it's so like honest. And
what's her name? Alice what?
Luna. Alice Luna.
Okay.
Yeah, she's super funny, very hard hitting. Yeah. I want to see her do more.
Maybe we'll have to try and book her.
I just added her as a friend.
Oh, good.
Yeah, great.
Goody. And then lastly, advice to new comedians.
I am one of those same assholes that previously mentioned. I will stop and tell a new comic all of my thoughts on how comedy should be done, given the slightest moment. As I've stolen up all of your podcast talking time myself.
That's what you're supposed to do. You're a fucking guest.
Yeah.
So good. Well, so I'm happy to do this at all times, but my go-to is always tell your favorite story. Start with the stories you love to tell, and that is your material. Like if somebody's just starting comedy, they don't know they already have 5 to 10 minutes of stories they like telling. Like that shit may be from high school, and may not be funny anymore, but you still know that you have a story you like to tell. So I would say, tell the stories that you already like telling, and edit. Remember editing and making it. Now that you have an idea you like, now edit it. And if you don't have fun fixing up a story and making it better, you're not going to enjoy this stand-up thing.
Or that.
It's the game of editing it and making it better. If that does anything for you, you're going to have a really good time.
All right. Well, anybody else has questions before we wrap up?
You're just delightful. I love you, Derek. You're awesome.
I love you.
Yeah, I've been looking
so
forward
much.
to this for a long time. I told Danny we booked you, and she was just like, "Oh my God, he's great."
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, thank
Jesse,
you.
like I said, Jesse had nothing but great things to say about you. So I'm really happy you came on. This was fun. Don't apologize for talking. You kept me
Right?
entertained and riveted the whole
It's the
time, man.
worst when guests don't speak. It's like, what the fuck are you doing on here? Get out of here.
Yeah, when I'm
Wow.
like, "What's your advice to new comedians?" Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Suck
like-
up the producers, cocks. No.
Yeah, or like, "You were in this stand-up show." I was. That's the fucking worst, man.
Wow. Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I had a great time. You're really doing with this show and at this moment what I want to be doing. You know, I haven't wanted to do a lot of the like Zoom content, you know, the Zoom comedy shows, because as a person who feels like I'm shouting into the void, I didn't want to make a thing that people wouldn't want once they could go outside. I felt like if I was going to record it, it had to be at least a normal podcast or close to a normal podcast quality, so it could at least stay true as a podcast for the future, you know? So you guys are doing it. You're doing the thing that I wish I was. I hope we can play more. That's all the fuck I want. You know, I just want to keep playing, want to play with more people, want to make stage time, you know.
Well, yeah, if the thing about Blacktop is serious, then yeah, we'll definitely be hitting you up for production ideas for sure.
So are you interested in doing anything coming up, or is this mostly just waiting until Blacktop open again?
At this moment, I think I would do anything.
I feel the same.
I've talked to a lot of venues. Anytime I hear about a new venue, I shoot them an email and ask how they're producing shows. You know, we're way deep in our podcasting time, but Sac Ramps, where Laura Bellini is doing the open mic, they're they have a skate ramp and stuff. They have a really cool stage that's set up for music, but I am dying to do comedy shows in that space. You know, and I'm not trying to keep that for myself. I hope other people do. You know, I want that to be a vibrant place, because they want people to use it. They sell beer, they sell snacks, they got all the fucking cool shit. Like, it's the coolest fucking I've seen. And it's right here in town, and so it's like a little nerd wet dream, you know? It's exactly where, like, it looks like the Power Rangers would hang out there, and we can
It's pretty dope.
I'm so excited by that. So I would love to do something there. There's also the Rust Room. They're a newer comedy room. There's so many places. I would love to produce anything with anybody. You know, anybody who wants to talk about a show idea. So once this pandy's over, we can get out and play. I would love to help with that as much as I can. I want to live like this artsy shit.
You're so delightful. I adore you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, thank you, Danny. So anything that I could do, I would be happy to do, because, like, you know, I've been just staying inside. So
would you be open to be hit up by people in different states, because we have a loyal following in Michigan randomly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
You know, absolutely. I would love to, you know, if somebody wants to talk about their show, if I could be supportive in any way. And I want other people to produce imported stand-up shows. So if somebody in Michigan, somebody listening wants to produce an imported show, talk to us, you know, like, you know, I want to share that idea. I just want it to exist.
Sick.
Same with the both, same with any, you know, I just want to share, play.
I think you're the least selfish person I know. You know what I mean? Like, you have these ideas and you don't mind, like, you know, just expanding them and making them better and talking with people. Sometimes when people have great ideas, they, you know, hoard them for their fucking selves. And that's one quality I absolutely adore about you.
What I get is you love what you do. So it comes out.
Thank you. Yeah, I very weirdly, you know, my mom doesn't see me do stand-up. My mom is really not that interested in my comedy. But my parents, I was groomed. I wasn't groomed to play football. I was groomed to sing and do comedy. That is, like, when I was 4 years old, my parents put me in a modeling class.
Oh,
I was like walking this little runway, and then, but once my parents were like, we have to pay $200 for headshots. Nah, we're done with this. So, but they wanted me to sing and act, and so this is really the only career path I ever had. And like I tried to be an educator, you know, I've done a little caregiving, but like this is really almost the only thing I've done. This is the only skill I have to share. And my dream is not to produce shows in Sacramento. I want to produce TV someday. You know, I want to make money in TV and movies. And so like, that means right now, I just want to be seen, and getting other people seen helps me be seen. All boats rise in a rising tide, you know? And I think Sacramento is a really great example of, if we can work together, people will come to us. You know, we don't have to compete and be like, fuck San Francisco and LA. We can bring people to us if we work together.
Is working for like the Sacramento Access, is that too small change for you or anything? All Access Sacramento?
I would happily do that. Yeah. Anything at all. I especially through this pandemic, through the pandy, I want to and should find better ways of doing this work in general. Like I very much want to produce, you know, if I had a little more life security of like producing regularly for something, you know, for a local TV show or radio show or something, that would make it easier for me to produce the other shows I'm doing. You know, because like trying to live on comedy producing is very funny. On nannying and comedy producing is very funny. I love it, but it's a weird feeling. So if I could grow up a little bit and get a real job as a producer, you know, then so I want anybody, if you got tips, if you think you got a tip for how I should get a job, anything, I'll take any interaction, you know, from Michigan, anybody.
Most definitely.
All right. Well, thank you, Derek, again, and we will be back next week.
Thank you.
Boys.
Gag on it. Right? That's the catchphrase, right? Gag on it.
Now.
Yeah, now it is.
Nice.
Later, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.